Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Piera and today I'm here with all of the books I read in June. I feel like every time I start a video now, it's just me saying, wow, so that was a shit show. And I'm not wrong. This month was alright, it wasn't bad. In terms of reading, I read probably 4 of my favourite books of the year. I read a bunch of really great books, and that's a new favourite series, that's a favourite sequel, slash probably the best book I've read so far. And all in all, just like a good reading month, which I wasn't really expecting, and then I look back on it and I'm like, oh, I actually didn't do too bad when you think about it. So that was fun. Before we get into all of my books of the month, I thought I'd just do like a quick general wrap up and like catch up and what the hell is going on. So we can start with that, and I think the most exciting news of the entire month was Nevernight won its first award. So we were nominated for Best Sci-Fi Fantasy / Horror at the Berlin Web Fest, and we were lucky enough to win. Most of that is thanks to you guys. They said that the jury was tied, but the fan votes by a landslide led us to the win. So thank you guys so much for that. It's weird and wild, and when I made it, I never really thought of like, you know, doing the festival circuit or putting it up for awards, and Caleb was like, nah, we should, like, it's a pretty decent project, may as well. So I wasn't too familiar with the festival circuit, and like awards for me, I'm like, cool, but also not what I made it for. And so to pick up an award, especially for Best Sci-Fi Fantasy, which is like a pretty big deal, at a pretty big deal of a webfest, is insane. And then the nominations have come through, and I think at the moment Nevernight is up for 18 nominations across 4 webfests, which is what the hell? So like I said, we won Berlin Best Fantasy / Sci-Fi. They're doing craft awards at the end of the year, so we'll find out if we're nominated for any more of those, which would be cool. So we're nominated at the Seoul Web Fest, and we're up for Best Action, Best Drama, Best Production Design, Best Cinematography, and Best VFX. For Melbourne Web Fest, we're up for Best Drama, Best Production Design, Best Supporting Actor, and Best VFX. And for Toronto, we're up for Best Sci-Fi Fantasy, Best Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Sound Design, Best VFX, Best Costume, Best Makeup and Hair, and Best Production Design. So when you look at it, wow! Like for all of those, we're up for at least like 1 or 2 of the big ones, which is your Best Drama, Best Sci-Fi Fantasy, and then a bunch of craft awards, which basically just means we got a really good team together, and they're very good at their jobs. So that's just batty to me that we're winning awards, or that we have won an award and that we're in consideration for other awards, which, you know, hopefully we'll win some, not just to be like, yay, we won some awards, but also because having some accolades will hopefully, I guess, kind of put us more on the radar of the people with the money who we want to give us to make a series. So fingers crossed that happens or something comes of that. Either way, it's just really nice, and I'm glad that my crew is getting recognized for their work because they worked so fucking hard on this. But apart from that, our house is being sold. So in September, I think we're moving out of this place and hopefully into a place of our own we're planning to buy. Just obviously looking for a nice like 4-bedroom house with a big enough yard for the dog. It's pretty much that and a bath were our only, like the only things we asked for. But 4 rooms, obviously, bedroom for us. I'm planning to, you know, obviously have my library and stuff, but I'm thinking depending on it, I'm gonna set my library and my study up in the same room like I had at our old house. Like at the moment, the library is literally just the library. It's just this and a table, and we share the room that you've seen for both of our desks, which is fine. It's just when Jacob's playing PlayStation and screaming at Fortnite and I'm trying to edit a self-tape, it's just very annoying. Hopefully I'll have my own library space, workspace, which I'm also going to try and deck out with some soundproofing stuff because I'm planning to get into audiobook narration, which I'm really looking forward to. It's something that I've always wanted to do. Obviously as an actor you do voiceovers and stuff, but I never thought about doing audiobook stuff, and I saw Murphy does a lot of audiobooks as well, and so I was watching a lot of her videos and thinking, oh, you know what, I could probably do that. If you're an author and you have a book that you want audio narrated, let me practice on your book, and then maybe just be really good and you can just have that. Yeah, that was exciting. I was also thinking of offering, not offering, like it's something that I wanted to do but I just never felt like qualified enough to do, but now that I'm award-winning, just kidding. I'm thinking of offering, beta reading isn't what I'm it's probably beta reading. So essentially beta reading, not editing, scripts and books, obviously rating, reading, reviewing, notes back on fantasy books, and scripts is another thing. Like if you have a short film script or a feature film script or any kind of script that you want feedback on or a second set of eyes or even just guidance and help, I'm thinking of setting something like that up on my Patreon where, you know, you pay a one-off fee and I will do the work for you. But if that's something you guys would be interested in, let me know. I think it could be a bit of fun. Okay, the books I read this month. So I started off this month with The Hunger Games, I think because I just finished Ballad of Songbirds, which sucked big time. And also rewatching the series with Jacob, or the movies, which I love and adore and will take to my grave. So I reread book 1, but I listened to the audiobook, and I didn't really like the audiobook because the narrator was like quite old and I just couldn't picture it. Then I was planning on reading Catching Fire again, and then I just fell out of the mood, so I didn't. But I did read The Black Song by Anthony Ryan, which is his new book coming out, which is the second book in the new trilogy after The Raven's Shadow. So it's like an ongoing series. But it's so good, like it's such good fantasy, and every time I read a new book, I always think I should have reread the series to remind myself what's going on, because there's so much world building, there's so many characters, there's so much history. Like I would have loved for, I think I'm just gonna wait for the third book to come out and then reread all of them, so like 6 books to get to the last book, because I think it's worth it. I really love the characters, I really love the world building and the magic system. I'm planning to definitely name one of my children Valen, because it's a dope name. Yeah, so I really, really loved it. I love Anthony Ryan as a writer. I love Valen as a character just because he's off and on, like he's nothing spectacular, but he's just a really cool, I just really like the way Ryan writes him. Then I read 10 Arrows of Iron by Sam Sykes, which I did say was my favorite book of the year. Absolutely loved it. Like it was just so my humor. Sal's voice was so distinct and her humor was so distinct. There are a lot of tropes that I love in it. There are a lot of new characters that I love in it. I still really enjoy the world and the magic system. Like it's a fun world. There's super dark things going on, but like the general premise isn't taking itself too seriously. Like it's quite lighthearted, and like I said, Sal is one of my favorite protagonists, and in book 1, like you'll either love her or hate her. Like she'll either annoy you like to the tits, or you'll be like, you know what, I fuck with that. And book 2 just enhances, I guess, like I said, her voice grows and you can kind of go, oh yeah, all right, I get it. So big fan of that. Then I read The Dark Tide by Elisa Jasinska. Well, I got halfway through it. This was our Name of the Book Club Book of the Month. One of them, we had 2. I only read this one, and I only read 200 pages. It's just really boring. Like, there's really nothing about it that interests me. It essentially focuses on this young woman who tries to save the boy that she loves from the evil witch queen, who has to essentially sacrifice that boy to appease the tide so it doesn't sink their island. And it's pitched as a female-female romance, which there is, but it just not the romance was fine, but everything else, there were a lot of questions. Like for such a short book, there was a lot that just was left unanswered and no one kind of touched on, or it was mentioned and then just kind of thrown away. So it was just really disappointing for the 200 pages that I read. There just wasn't anything that really kept me involved. I didn't really care about the characters. Like the premise was cool, but then it didn't really go in depth. And then we started the Fantasy-a-thon. So I was hosting the Fantasy-a-thon along with Maddie from The Book Pusher and Ali from Hardback Hoarder. I do have a vlog I will link above as well for that one. So essentially I set myself a TBR of books to read in a week, and I then threw that TBR completely out the window because I discovered a new favorite series. But before that new favorite series, I read Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, which is her new book, which is set in, I want to say like the 17 or 1800s, I forget. It focuses on these witch sisters who, after 7 years apart, have come back together and are essentially trying to bring back magic into New Salem, obviously against essentially the patriarchy. This book I really enjoy. I haven't read 10 Doors of January yet, but I think I'm more likely to read it now because I really like the way Harrow writes. The story was super engaging, like the characters were great, the world building was great, the magic system I really liked as well. It's like your old school witchery is just, if you know me, I'm into that sort of stuff. The prose that she uses and the sentence structure and the way, you know how some sentences just get you? There were a lot of those in that book, so it was just really beautifully written, which I think is why I loved it so much. But then, as I said, I found a new favorite series, and you guys have been telling me to read it for years and I just never got around to it, but that's the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. Now hold me up here, okay? So I tried to listen to the audiobook of this like 6 months ago, just like casually on my way to work, so I wasn't super invested. I didn't know how much brain power you needed to read this series. I picked it up in physical copy on my Kindle, and I'm reading it, and obviously the first 2 chapters are in second person, which I was like, ugh! But like within 4 chapters, I was so deeply invested. Oh my goodness, I couldn't stop, I couldn't put it down, and then I went from the book to the audiobook, and I smashed through the entire trilogy, which is the 5th season, the Obelisk Gate, and the Stone Sky in, yeah, like 3 days, because I was just so obsessed with it and I just wanted to read constantly, which you can see in the vlog is just me going, wow. It's such a great series. The series is essentially set in a world where earthquakes are common and like quite deadly, and there's this race of people called the Origins, and they have this ability to manipulate the energy and to kind of, yeah, influence it's very geographical in that regard. But they're also shunned by the world because they're, you know, scary people with superpowers. We follow 3 points of view, Demaya, Cyanide, and Essen, and Demaya is a young girl just discovering her powers, and then she's taken to the school called the Fulcrum, which is where they kind of train these origins with their powers to use. And we follow Cyanide, who's a little bit older, who's in like the prime of her origin powers, as she's sent off with her mentor to essentially breed, but also learn from him on their way to quell one of these earthquakes in like a nearby city. And we also follow Essen, who's a 42-year-old mother of 2, after she comes home to find her son has been murdered and her daughter has been stolen. So then that becomes her quest to find them. And it's just really interesting in the way it's written. And book 1 was definitely my favorite, book 2 and then book 3 probably in that order, just because I love a magic school. I love any sort of magic school or organization or anything like that. I really loved the characters in book 1, and again, just the writing style is incredible. But this one, like I said, you need, I felt like I needed so much brain power to read it, and half the time I was like, I'm too dumb to understand what's going on. Like, I don't know what's happening because I'm so fucking stupid. It was just so amazing, like the world building. I know I've said this like 4 times, but the world building and the characters and the writing style is just, I can understand why every single one of those books has won a Hugo Award, because it is worth it. If you haven't read the Broken Earth trilogy, please go and read it because it is so good. And so I then went and downloaded her entire backlist, and so I'm just about to start, I think it's the 100,000 Kingdoms or something like that. But it's this one, which I will put in here because I don't remember the name of it right now. But I'm just really looking forward to any NK Jemisin, to be honest. Yeah, shit, so those were all the books that I read in June. Yeah, but like I said, it was a pretty decent reading month. Like, nothing apart from like The Dark Tide. I wasn't like, I think I liked every book that I read this month, which is wild. That never happens. So yeah, that was a world of fun. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what books you read this month. And also if you've read the Broken Earth trilogy, and then we can talk about it, because I have questions. I have some questions because I'm not super sure. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.